Living in Japan, I occasionally come across a number of gaming-related items that I'd never heard of or had never seen in my life. Now, of course, with Final Fantasy, the series is well known around the world. With 3 releases on the Famicom, the series has a pretty good representation on the platform. But, did you know that there was a very late release on the system combining the first 2 games into one cart? Well, that's exactly what we're here to talk about. Let's get into it. Danny from the Famicast here. If you're new to the channel, please be sure to subscribe and turn on those notifications. Sound off in the comments down below, and we may read it out on our bi-weekly show called the Famicast. Today, though, we're taking a quick look at the super cool Final Fantasy 1 and 2 Famicom combo cart in this video. The original Final Fantasy released in Japan on December 18th, 1987 on Famicom. The game received a 34 out of 40 from Famitsu and went on to spawn the million-selling series of games. Now, not only was the game a critical hit, it also saw strong sales, selling 520,000 units in Japan alone. The game eventually made its way to North America in May 1990. Almost exactly a year later, Squaresoft was back when they released Final Fantasy II on Famicom on December 18th, 1988. The game scored a bit higher on Famitsu this time, receiving a 35 out of 40, and performed even better than the original, selling 760,000 units. Now, although an English translation was worked on for the game in early 1991, the project was ultimately scrapped, and the game wouldn't see an official English release until Final Fantasy Origins on the PlayStation. And of course, you know, both games are no strangers to re-releases over the years. Of course, aside from this combo cart, which is the main topic of discussion today, both games also found homes on the PlayStation, WonderSwan, Game Boy Advance, Wii Virtual Console, PSP, Nintendo 3DS, mobile, and more. So at this point, you're probably wondering to yourself, what exactly is this Final Fantasy 1 and 2 combo pack? Well, Final Fantasy 1 and 2 on the Famicom is, again, this combo cart release of the original Final Fantasy and Final Fantasy 2. Now, not only this, but the game was also packaged with the special strategy guide for both titles. Both games did receive a few minor updates here as well. Now, here are some of the differences and changes made in these versions of the game. First up, you have the ability to select either Final Fantasy 1 or Final Fantasy 2 from the opening title menu here. The save data for both games work independently of each other here as well. The logo here is also more in line with the Final Fantasy logo adopted with Final Fantasy 4 and onward. Now, next up, the outer box too is a little bit more in line with Final Fantasy 4 and 5, offering these deformed versions of the main characters on the boxes you can see here. Now, as I mentioned previously, a special strategy guide for both games was also included. We'll get a little bit more on that later. As for some other, really kind of minor changes here too, the graphics for Beholder, or Evil Eye, and Death Beholder, Death Eye, in Final Fantasy 1 were changed to match the sprites that were included with the North American release. The previously mentioned characters are referred to as Evil Eye and Death Eye in the strategy guide, despite the names actually not being changed in the game. Now, some of the information I was getting this from a Japanese source, it said this, but I wasn't sure if it was the guide that was included with the game or not. I combed through this thing, and I didn't see any mention of these characters, so it might be another guide, I'm not sure. Now, one other kind of just a fix that they did that they probably wish they could have done with the original. So in Final Fantasy II, the opening text corrects a mistake that was found in the original version. A misspelling of the Japanese word naranakata, it was put there as narakata, was corrected to the appropriate word. Oddly enough, Square Enix actually has a website entry for this particular game for the Famicom 1 and 2 combo cart. Now, they have some of the basics here too, such as the release date and the price and stuff like that. Interestingly, they also still have a few blurbs of text here as well. Now, from the top, the text reads, this is my translation, "The legend started here. It's been 7 years since the release of Final Fantasy. Now, the first and second game are available in one package." The bottom reads, "Anyone can make it to the end of the games and play with peace of mind with some assistance from the included strategy guide." Now, not being a remaster of sorts for the Super Famicom likely disappointed some, with this just being a Famicom game, but I think having both games on one cart in a package like this with the strategy guide was a pretty good deal at the time. Now let's go back to 1994. This is 7 years after the release of the original Final Fantasy in Japan. The Super Famicom has been on the market for 4 years. Final Fantasy 4 and 5 are already available on the console, and 6 is just months away from release. Squaresoft had been releasing hit after hit, critically and commercially, and the Final Fantasy brand had reached basically new peaks in Japan. The company felt that the timing was appropriate to go back to the catalog and release a special version of the original titles, maybe to help draw off of the power of the IP here too. Final Fantasy 1 and 2 was released on the Famicom on February 27th, 1994 for a suggested retail price of 6,800 yen, which is roughly about $70 US at the time, which equates to roughly 145 USD in 2023. Now, while it might seem strange that Squaresoft would put forth any effort to bring out a repackaging of an old game on an old platform, I think there are a few things that you should know. So, the Famicom was an absolute juggernaut when it came to install base at the time in Japan. Now, even compared to the Super Famicom. As of March 1994, the Famicom was sitting around 18.6 million units sold versus 11.8 million of the Super Famicom. I mean, sure, things were heating up for Nintendo's successor, but Squaresoft still felt that it was worth giving this experiment a try. And not only this, but the Super Famicom Final Fantasy titles were actually quite a bit more expensive than the Famicom re-release that they were releasing here with Final Fantasy 1 and 2. Final Fantasy 6, which released in April 1994, retailed for 11,400 yen, roughly 120 USD at the time, which is roughly like 244 USD in 2023. Now, having a budget game on an older system was a risk that Square was willing to take. Now, unfortunately, I haven't been able to track down any sales data for this specific version for this Final Fantasy 1 and 2 on the Famicom, so it's not really clear if this gamble paid off for Square when it was all said and done. I mean, still, this set up a precedent for future re-releases, including re-releases of both of these games in one package. Now, when it comes to my physical copy of this game, I actually managed to track this thing down quite randomly. I don't recall exactly when I picked it up, but it's probably sometime around 2010 or 2011. Now, at first glance, I thought it was a Super Famicom game, given the size of the box and all that type of stuff. I paid next to nothing for the game, and it's been sitting on my shelf pretty much ever since, occasionally pulling it out to give a look at it. Now, my copy here isn't in the best condition either, but I think it's still pretty decent. It came with all the inserts, instruction manual, the card holder, the guide, and the styrofoam insert here. The box itself is pretty clean, but it does have a bit of a tear on one of the corners. The front of my cart here too is pretty clean, but it's a little bit dingy on the back. You know, and being a combo cart, I think it's interesting to note the size of this cart when compared to other Famicom games. I mean, in case you didn't know, Famicom game carts are typically just a little bit smaller than standard Super Nintendo game carts, so this custom cart is quite a bit bigger, than, like I said, than the regular Famicom carts, so that was pretty interesting. And I mean, it's so they can accommodate both games in there too. The included guide here is a really nice addition. There are over 100 pages here filled with a walkthrough, tips, weapon and armor data, and lots of awesome artwork. Now, even if you can't find a physical copy to thumb through for yourself, you can actually find a digital copy up on archive.org. We have that linked up in the description box below. Also, for any of the other details that were discussed throughout this video, be sure to check out the sources section below. You can see where I got a lot of this information. I also want to give a quick shout out to the Game Data Library. It's a really awesome website that has a bunch of different Japanese sales data. If you're interested in that type of stuff, definitely be sure to check it out. Again, that is linked up below. After some quick searches on eBay just here recently, I mean, the game is still a bit hard to come by, but not impossible to get your hands on. There were a decent number of listings that are available as of October 2023 at relatively reasonable prices. So, like, if you want this thing, it's not prohibitively expensive at the moment. The Final Fantasy 1 and 2 combo cart for the Famicom was definitely a cool find and an interesting nugget of history from Square's catalog. Now, of course, this is a thing that at least some gamers in Japan were and are aware of, but let's go ahead and turn things over to you. Did you know about the existence of this cart? Do you have one? Be sure to sign off in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. As always, thank you guys so much for checking out this video. If you like what you see, please feel free to drop this video a like. If you're new to the channel, please be sure to subscribe. We've got tons of podcasts, video reviews, looks at Japanese exclusives like this, and a whole lot more. Again, this is Danny from the Famicast. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll catch you later.